There's a fundamental misunderstanding about what James Bond is. Not what he represents, not what themes he explores, but what the institution of Bond is. Because Bond, when done right, isn't just a franchise. It's not the next toy chest for a prestige director to rummage through. It's the last communal campfire in British cinematic identity. And now, we've handed it to Denis Villeneuve, a man whose filmography treats joy like it's a contaminant. We're not talking about some forgotten pulp series. We're talking about Bond. The martinis, the monologues, the gadgets, the girls, the getaway cars. And instead, we're getting the guy who gave us Enemy, a film where Jake Gyllenhaal plays two characters and maybe also a metaphorical spider. We're talking Prisoners, where fatherhood gets tortured into a morality puzzle. Arrival, where aliens show up, but the real drama is about deterministic linguistics. Blade Runner 2049, gorgeous, hypnotic, and so emotionally insulated it made replicants feel more human than the humans watching. It's not about whether Villeneuve is talented. Of course he is. The problem is not what he can do, it's what he does. Villeneuve turns genre into meditation, and Bond is not built for meditation. Bond moves, Bond glides, Bond explores through the door, Bond explodes through the doorframe with a grin and a Walther PPK. But we've been here before, haven't we? Think back to Skyfall, directed by Sam Mendes, another Oscar-winning filmmaker from outside the genre, best known for American Beauty. He came into Bond's 50th anniversary with what should have been a victory lap, a cinematic party to remind us why this character endured for half a century. Instead, we got a grim dirge about obsolescence and aging, an entire film dedicated to telling us that Bond is outdated, that MI6 is archaic, and the world has moved on. Mind you, this is just 2 films after Casino Royale and Quantum of Solace, which were rebooting the character as a newly minted 00 agent. So which is it? He just got started, or he's already past his prime? And let's be honest here, Casino Royale didn't exactly set Bond up to succeed either. It turned him into a low-rent Jason Bourne knockoff who cries in the shower. Yes, that actually happened. That's a scene from Casino Royale. Then comes Spectre, Mendes again, and this time they have the brilliant idea of retconning Blofeld, Bond's legendary archenemy, into his long-lost brother. Because nothing says Cold War elegance and global espionage quite like emotional baggage from a shared childhood. It's fan fiction with a tuxedo budget. That's what happens when auteurs try to quote-unquote fix Bond. They don't blend with the format, they bend it. They deconstruct the mythology to make room for their own. And every time the series loses something in that translation, Villeneuve's appointment fits that exact pattern. He's another prestige name brought in to give Bond that award season shine. But Bond was never supposed to beg for critical validation. He is the validation. He's the one who made espionage cool and cocktails iconic. He set the standard. And when Bond tries too hard to be something else, something gritty or elevated or important, it stops being Bond and starts being a cover version played too slow. Now contrast that with someone like Martin Campbell. Campbell doesn't get enough credit. He saved the franchise twice. First with GoldenEye, a film that jolted Bond out of the Cold War fog and brought him roaring into the 90s with just enough self-awareness and a dash of techno-thriller freshness. Do I think GoldenEye is overrated? Absolutely. It's fine, it's good, but calling it the best Bond ever? That feels like nostalgia talking with its tie too tight. Still, Campbell understood that Bond is a formula, and the power of that formula is in how you remix it, not rewrite it. Then he comes back for Casino Royale in 2006, and it's like the man gets one hand tied behind his back. This time, he's saddled with the franchise's sudden identity crisis. Let's be like Bourne. So what should be Bond's rebirth ends up being his reduction. Less flair, more fists. Less wit, more wounds. Less swagger, more sobbing. Campbell did what he could, but the framework was broken before the cameras even rolled. The lesson here? You can't keep handing Bond over to directors who don't trust what makes Bond work. And more importantly, you can't let them build Bond around one actor or one filmmaker's personal arc. Daniel Craig made it clear he was done. Famously said he'd rather slit his wrists than play Bond again. The only way they convinced him to come back was by promising to kill the character off in No Time to Die. And they did. That's the legacy. That's the capstone. Bond dies. And for what? For closure? For prestige? What makes Bond compelling is that he's not personal. He's generational. He's reinventable. He doesn't belong to one face, one timeline, or one tragic backstory. He belongs to the myth, the iconography. He belongs to us. Directors like Villeneuve don't play in that space. They don't do elastic storytelling. They lock tone, lock pace, lock vision. That works when you're building your own universe. It's a bad fit when you're stepping into one that already has rules and rituals. Bond is ritual. It's the shaken martini, the villain lair, the smart quip, the slow walk into frame, the theme blaring like it knows it's the coolest sound in cinematic history. Handing that off to Denis Villeneuve is like asking Stanley Kubrick to direct a Star Wars movie. Except he removes the lightsabers, recasts Darth Vader as a philosophy professor, and has R2-D2 reciting Nietzsche in a wide-angle silence. Bond doesn't need to be that deep. He needs to be fun. Not unserious, not campy for the sake of it, but bold, romantic, mythic fun. The kind that makes people dress up for midnight screenings. The kind that brings families back to theaters for something that actually feels cinematic. So no, I'm not celebrating this choice. Villeneuve is too famous, too stylized, too carved from marble. And Bond needs someone who can move, who can slip through shadows, fire a clever one-liner, and make a getaway look like a ballet. Let the man finish whatever cerebral masterpiece he's composing next. But this isn't his arena. Bond doesn't need a sculptor, it needs a showman. And if you've stuck around this long, here are 3 things I want you to do next. First, let me know in the comments, do you think a director like Denis Villeneuve can actually serve the legacy of James Bond? Or is this another case of auteur overreach? I want to hear your take, whether you agree, disagree, or just want to vent about Quantum of Solace again. Second, drop the code word Joseph Wiseman in the comments if you made it all the way to the end of the video. That lets me know who the real ones are, and yes, it's a nod to where this franchise actually began. Third, if you missed my first Bond 26 video where I dug into the franchise's identity crisis and my broader concerns about its future, go click on it now. It's up on the end screen and it lays the groundwork for everything we talked about here today. Thanks for watching.